Hi, my name is Gabriel COF, and today I'll be speaking. My proposition is genetically modifying plants and animals is hazardous for those who consume these GMOs. My three claims are that genetically engineered animals, such as chicken, are hazardous to consume. My second claim is that GMOs are toxic to the environment. And my third claim is that genetically modified corn is hazardous to livestock and humans. So my first claim states that the FDA states chickens are injected and fed with arsenic. According to global research, the FDA says its own research shows that the arsenic added to chicken feed ends up in the chicken meat where it is consumed by humans. So far, the last 60 years, American consumers who eat conventional chicken have been swallowing arsenic, a known cancer-causing chemical. They also contain hormones, carcinogens, corn pills. These are just to make the chicken's meat thicker and meatier so that the farmers can actually profit more and get more out of their own livestock. Also from the global research, I found that studies correlate that the amount of arsenic in the human body, I should have stated that it does correlate with cancer. They stated that, but even as its arsenic-containing product is pulled off the shelves, the FDA continues its campaign of denial, claiming arsenic in chickens is at such a low level that it's still safe to eat. This is even as the FDA says arsenic is a carcinogen, meaning it increases the risk of cancer. I found that this is already controversial in the fact that the FDA is stating that arsenic in chickens is at such a low level that it is still safe to eat, but then again they still state that it's a carcinogen and that it's it increases the risk of cancer. My second claim, which is that GMOs are toxic to the environment. They deplete soil minerals and destroy beneficial bacteria. Natural News, another source that I found, stated that the truth of the matter is that the GMOs and the chemical used to grow them are the major source of environmental pollution. A 2011 study published in the Journal of Proceedings of the National Academy of Science found that the bacteria engineered into Monsanto's GM corn can now be found in hundreds of streams and waterways throughout the U.S. Midwest. Another study published in the journal Analytical and Bioanalytical Chemistry revealed that Roundup herbicide is also present in many waterways and groundwater resources throughout America as well. So through this, we already see that farmers that go out of the way to genetically modify their livestock and their crops are already polluting other farmers' livestock and crops that don't even mean to, because it's going into the waterways, into the soil, and just polluting the environment. They also damage native species. Natural News also stated that a major point of contention with GMOs is that they can very easily pass through their traits onto non-GMO, organic, and native crops and other plants, effectively destroying their very integrity permanently. Hundreds of farmers have actually been sued by Monsanto and other GMO giants over the years after their crops were contaminated by GMOs. And Monsanto is actually the company that creates Roundup, if you guys are familiar with it. It's pretty much a herbicide. But yeah, I just wanted to find that for you guys. And my third and final claim is that genetically modified agriculture, such as corn, is hazardous for animals and humans to consume. GMO corn contains herbicide and produces its own insecticide and are not thoroughly tested for safety. The Non-GMO Project states that GMO sweet corn is genetically engineered to be herbicide resistant, Roundup ready, and to produce its own insecticide, Bt toxin. Like all GMOs, genetically modified sweet corn has not been thoroughly tested to ensure its own safety for consumption. This also goes for cattle. Cattle actually eat the genetically modified corn, which then contaminates the meat that we eat, and which causes, let me just restate that. It contaminates the meat that we as humans consume, which leads to diseases such as cancer, cardiovascular disease, and so on. So my conclusion is that we should ban the use of GMOs on animals and plants. So yeah, that's my conclusion. Thank you.
All right, Gabriel, I thought that you had a clear statement of the proposition. There's an excellent preview of what the supporting points are going to be, although I think they need to be phrased more as declarative sentences. Some of them just seem like they are descriptive or narrative instead of making inferences. When you get to the body of the speech, you signpost your first point without repeating what the claim was. I think you should probably go ahead and remind us what the claim is. And then there's this explanation about arsenic and chicken. And by the way, you probably know it. You basically make the same argument twice. I'm not sure if it's because you are paraphrasing the evidence when you're making the argument and then reading the evidence to support the claim that you just made, which is basically just kind of repeating yourself, or if you've got two different sources that are basically saying the same thing and you're citing them in different places. It's a little unclear. The FDA, for instance, sounds at first like they're critical, but then later on it sounds like you're saying that the FDA is really ignoring their own information. So I think you need to be a little clearer as to how that is supposed to work. The transition to the second point was relatively clear. By the way, I'm not quite clear on how chicken getting arsenic in them has anything to do with GMOs. That was not very clearly explained. And you say it's been going on for 60 years, so I think that's a lot longer than there's been genetically modified organisms. I'm not even sure if it's, it's barely within the time that we're aware of the gene sequence at all. So I think that, there's got to be some other relationship that you're talking about here. If it's connected to genetic modification, it needs to be explained how it fits into that category. Your second point, you labeled pretty clearly. You make a claim about it depleting the minerals, but I didn't hear any evidence about a mineral depletion. I did hear some information that suggests that the materials get distributed throughout the environment, but there was never any documentation that the distribution of those bacteria into the environment was harmful in any way or that they produced any negative consequences. I think that there was one argument that suggests that they might contaminate native species and that those native species would then be forever transformed. And I'm wondering, well, why is that important? What is the consequence when they're transformed? Does that mean that they're worse in some way? I thought that was problematic. I thought you had a good transition to the third point that kind of explained a little bit more of your argument, and that helped quite a bit. On the argument on the third point, I think we understood where you were going, although here again you've got a presupposition that it hasn't been tested thoroughly. You keep citing these organizations who say it hasn't been tested thoroughly, and that's the proof on that. I don't know what tests have been conducted. I don't know if there's no evidence that suggests that they are dangerous, and I think that that's something that you could probably use. Your argument basically comes down to they're dangerous. And then the other argument is that arsenic is carcinogenic. You keep coming back to that, and my guess is that 95% of food is carcinogenic at the right level. The question is what is the level of risk that we have for it to be carcinogenic? And there's no explanation either on the arsenic on the first point or any of the other points on the third point. And then at the end of the speech, you kind of end with a policy proposition instead of kind of coming back to your original claim, which was a factual claim. So you're kind of finishing up with a mixed message there. All right, thank you.